Folayan. Please, sir, you are welcome to the high table. Thank you. And the panelists are Dr. Shuaibu Begore, who is on his way here. He was here earlier, but he was called for another assignment. I understand that in a few minutes' time, he will be joining. And the next panelist is Mr. Chinazo Obodo. He's a permanent secretary. Chinasa, you're welcome, sir. And the third panelist is Dr. Gabriel Gudu. He's been here earlier in the day and he's still here. Thank you, sir, for waiting. Please, let's give him a hand of applause. Thank you. So I wish at this point to hand over the further proceedings of this session to the lead panelist. Thank you, sir. It's over to you.
Yeah, good afternoon, distinguished participants in this session, and my distinguished colleagues on the high table. Good afternoon. The topic that we are looking at in this session is the weight of societal demands, navigating external pressures on civil servants. And so, I just recall that the president, Mr. President, made one of the remarks he made when he was in that session was a little definition about civil servants and the civil service as a tool that government has to develop programs and projects. So the enormity of that responsibility is quite high. So the role of the civil servant is to then begin to take seriously their duty. And that's the very essence of their coming to service. Right from day one, you are recruited to do some service. And so, right from that day one, the pressure is on to deliver on those duties and responsibilities. And the higher you go, the more demands in terms of responding to those duties and responsibilities. And part of the duty is also essentially about meeting expectations. Expectations over you as a person, and expectations over all of us together as civil servants or public servants. And in the midst of duty, responsibility, and expectations, we must be able to maintain some level of integrity. We must be able to reflect the ethos of the service in a manner that is not going to make us to break down. We must be able to keep fit to be able to deliver, and it then becomes your responsibility to make sure you are fit. Whatever you want to do, you just have to do it. And so the life of a civil servant is more or less one of stability and service, working for the good of all. And so the civil servant becomes a symbol of that service. But beneath is a web of complexities, dealing with expectations in the midst of constraints that will definitely come, and the pressures that will eventually shape your career and eventually shape your personality as well. Because again, as people come into the service, of course, all sorts of people come into the service, but the service must be able to polish, must be able to refine them. And then, as you progress in career, you become the epitome of that service itself. You then begin to reflect what the service expects any public officer to be. So, those demands, we need not take them lightly. Sometimes they can be very, very formidable. Very, very formidable. And then those demands and those expectations too, they are also dynamic in those expectations, particularly when we are not dealing with a large population, 200 million people, we are also dealing with the demographics, that is young, youthful ages, either as customers that you have to relate with in the outside society, or within as young officers that are underneath you who are also growing in service. And so, in relating to the public, it's almost like a virtual one in which the experiences on a daily basis, most often is not going to be the same. And so your responses too, the way you respond to a particular situation yesterday, is not going to be the same for today. Either because you did some level of self-reflection and right away you knew inside you that the way I handled it yesterday was not the best way. That's a self-learning. And so you want to present a better future when those circumstances come again, a fresh day, to be able to deal with those things. So essentially, we are talking about those societal expectations. Those societal expectations, some are the soft issues. And that's why you find, for instance, the Civil Service Handbook. It lists the values of some of those expectations that is placed upon the civil servants. And what are those expectations as we have in the Civil Service Handbooks? It's talking about political neutrality, the duty of confidentiality. We must be able to maintain that 24/7. Integrity and moral rectitude. Some level of integrity that's brought about being honest, being forthright, all other things. Those are the things we must begin to reflect. If for any reason we have deficiency in those areas, then we know right away that those are issues that we need to deal with. Otherwise, if we continue that path, then we'll not be able to deliver to the expectations of the people. How about professionalism? We must be true professionals. Professionalism is not going to come in a day. It's a function of experience over the years. Experience over the years. So the expectation also is that civil servants, we must be ready at all times to learn. We must be ready at all times to learn, and then we grow in the service so that we can become more professional. How about discipline, loyalty, honesty, courage? All those things are parts of the values of the service, that the civil servants, it must be a reflection of all those things. Some others,
our panelist is already here, Dr. Bengore. He's a Servi PAMSEC. Please, let's give him a hand of applause. You're welcome, sir.
You're welcome. So, we must be able to reflect all those values of the service. In addition, civil servants were expected to interpret policies, implemented policies that are crafted by political leaders. Political leaders, it could just be right away from the government. Policies, in this particular administration, we are talking of renewed hope. And so those are things that have been streamlined into every ministry. Whatever sector, education, transport, those things have been streamlined into it. And then we have a responsibility and a duty, first of all, to understand in order for us to be able to implement those policies. Sometimes those policies, whatever were misgivings around policies, don't forget about that neutrality. We must be able to implement the policies of the government of the day. And so, in that duality of the role of the civil servant, serving the state and the people, it creates a kind of competing interest. And so the civil servant must constantly weigh the needs of the many against the dictates of the few. We are there to serve the interest of the majority. In addition, we must also know that society is so dynamic, it's open to so many changes across gender groups, across the age groups. And so whatever we do, we must be able to satisfy every sector within the society. We must be able to respond to those changes as they come. And that's why sometimes we want to begin to ask, when policies fail, we need to look back. Why do they fail? Sometimes either we have not got it right. Sometimes the feedback in our stakeholder engagement around policy making, if the feedback we get is not reflective of the majority, then those policies are going to be criticized. You just see back what happened. I thought we went right, but then maybe the sector, in terms of your selection, the stakeholder engagement is not deep enough, is not rich enough. And that's why sometimes you do some policies, even within your labor union, they begin to oppose it. And so if we are allowed ourselves to take ourselves, we are diligent in taking the process through, engage with every stakeholder, and then we'll be able to get better results around the policies that we want to make. Much more, some of those expectations are there, but some are also like invisible expectations. And those ones that are the ones that sometimes every action that a civil servant takes, it's like people just watch you, and so whatever you do is under scrutiny, at work and outside of work. And that's why when civil servants, if you do things that you are not supposed to do, even outside office hours, you can still be called to account for those things. And so it becomes additional responsibility that we have to bear. So some are intrinsic in terms of those expectations, the soft issues about integrity, professionalism, but there are some that are also very much direct, very tangible in those expectations. Political pressures will come, and so we have a role to implement those policies, no matter our misgivings. Number two, we have the social pressures from the community, from social group, advocacy groups. They also begin to put their own pressure that you have to also confront. And so the challenge is responding adequately without yielding to those demands. In which case you are not compromising the integrity of the service, you are not compromising principles, you maintain objectivity, while we also uphold the rule of law. There is also the personal pressures that comes from family members. They do come too. And I believe in the course of this discussion, we want to look at some of those issues. And so those family pressures also they become a constraint. And then if you are not careful, there could be burnout, moral fatigue, and there could be disillusionment as well. For sake of time, we want to look at some of the strategies that we can use to navigate some of those pressures. Number one is that we must build personal resilience. We must be able to we must develop ourselves to a point that we're able to handle every situation. There are situations that come at this conference now, different levels of officers that are in specific areas. There are some challenges and issues that some will be able to handle. The ones they cannot handle, they escalate it. In the process of doing that, they also learn, because I hope that there's going to be another conference like the next year, and so the experiences of this one should be able to inform what is going to happen in the subsequent one. So there must be that personal resilience around self-awareness, recognizing your values, your triggers, the thing that stress you up. You must recognize it. Don't cross that threshold. Otherwise, the responses you want to give to people might not be the ones that you actually desire. Also, there must be continuous learning. You must be ready to learn continuously. And now that we want to leverage on technology, without you having to be in office environment, go on the internet, learn quite a number of things. Issues about dealing with customers, the society, handling your bosses at work. Those are issues that you can then self-learn to be able to prepare yourself. And then there must be emotional intelligence, empathy, patience, persuasion. Those things are indispensable in terms of our work role and our work duty. There must be communication that is transparent and open. There must be fair workload distribution. We don't want to burn out our officers. We must be able to, in certain the indicators, performance indicators, we must be fair, we must be objective. We don't overload people. And I know too, in those new performance management, there's a form of engagement there. If your targets are too high, you can engage with your boss, and he says, no, these targets are too high. You discuss around it, and then they moderate it. And there are people who surpass their expectations, indicators. They deliver so fast. Of course, you review it, and then you raise the standard for those ones. And I believe all eventually is just to make sure that we're able to satisfy the people. And at the bottom line, actually, again, is going to be about improving the perception of the civil servants with the general public. Sometimes you talk to people and they say the civil servants, they are just no good. They are not doing anything. And they make those comments because of the encounters they have had with civil servants. It can only begin to change when they begin to see some level of improvement. We show empathy, we are approachable, we provide solutions to people who have problems, and in some instances, conduct. Even when the solution is not with you, you tell them that no, it's not here, it's going to be in the other place. I've seen instances where people talk like that, and they feel that no, they know that you are saying is because you are expecting something cash. That if you give him money, it's going to change the story. You know, so when we actually tell people, no, it's not here, what you are looking for cannot be handled here, is this place. You must be able to do it in a way that the man, even though you have not solved the problem, he feels happy at the end of the day. And so those are things that we can do. And I believe with those self-learning and commitment to duty and responsibility, we should be able to do that in a manner that the image of the public service eventually will witness an improvement. I want to stop at this point, but I allow my co-panelists to also chip in one or two things. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chinas Obodo, the Permanent Secretary, the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation. On this topic, the weight of societal demand, navigating external pressures on civil servants. The civil service is actually the engine room of the government. And we have core values